What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest stars sits down for what should be a simple morning chat, only to face disrespect so shocking that he does the unthinkable and walks off set in front of millions of viewers? In just 38 seconds of one particular exchange, Michael Strahan's career would take a hit he never saw coming. Samuel L. Jackson arrived at the Good Morning America studio that morning, expecting a standard promotional interview. He was there to talk about his latest project, to share some laughs, and to connect with the audience who had supported him for decades. What he got instead was something completely different. The interview started normally enough. Samuel sat down on the bright yellow couch, surrounded by the panel. Michael Strahan sat directly across from him, with Robin Roberts to his left and George Stephanopoulos on the far end. The cameras were rolling, the studio audience was ready, and everything seemed fine. Michael started with the first question. "So Samuel, great to have you here. Let's jump right in. Your new movie, it's got a lot of action, a lot of explosions. At your age, how much longer can you really keep doing these physical roles?" The studio went quiet. Robin's smile faltered. George shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Samuel paused, his expression changing from friendly to guarded in an instant. "My age?" Samuel repeated, his voice calm but with an edge that anyone could hear. "I'm not sure what my age has to do with anything, Michael. I'm in better shape than most people half my years." Michael laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that made everything worse. "Come on, you know what I mean. You're not exactly a spring chicken anymore. I'm just saying, at some point, don't you think it's time to pass the torch to younger actors?" Robin tried to step in, her voice gentle but firm. "Michael, I think what we're trying to ask is more about how Samuel maintains his incredible energy and dedication to his craft." But Michael wasn't backing down. He leaned forward, that same condescending smile still on his face. "No, Robin, I'm asking a real question here. Samuel's been doing this for what, 40 years? 50? At what point do you look in the mirror and say, maybe it's time to retire?" Samuel's jaw tightened. You could see it in his eyes. This wasn't just an awkward question anymore. This was disrespectful. This was crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed. "First of all," Samuel said, his voice measured and controlled, "I've been acting professionally for over 4 decades, yes, and in that time, I've built a career based on talent, dedication, and respect for the craft. Something you might want to learn about before you sit in that chair and question someone's value based on how old they are." The audience gasped. Some people started murmuring. George looked like he wanted to crawl under the desk, but Michael, incredibly, kept going. "Whoa, whoa, whoa," Michael said, throwing his hands up like he was the victim. "I'm just asking questions here. Isn't that what journalists do? Or are you too sensitive to handle a little honest conversation?" Robin shook her head, clearly frustrated. "Michael, that's not fair. Samuel is our guest, and he deserves respect." "I'm giving him respect," Michael shot back. "I'm treating him like an adult who can handle tough questions. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe people have been treating him with kid gloves for so long that he can't handle real talk anymore." Samuel stood up, not quickly, not in a huff, but slowly, deliberately. He unclipped his microphone with steady hands, his face a mask of controlled anger. "Real talk," Samuel said, his voice quiet but powerful. "You want real talk? Here's some real talk for you, Michael. Real journalists don't ambush their guests. Real journalists don't use their platform to belittle people. And real professionals know the difference between asking tough questions and just being disrespectful." Michael scoffed. "Oh, here we go. The celebrity can't handle a little pushback, so he's going to throw a tantrum and leave. Real mature, Samuel, real mature." George finally spoke up, his voice urgent. "Michael, stop. Just stop." But the damage was done. Samuel placed his microphone on the coffee table, the small thud echoing through the now silent studio. "You know what the sad part is?" Samuel continued, looking directly at Michael. "I came here today excited to talk about a project I'm passionate about. I came here to connect with people who've supported me throughout my career. But instead, I get ambushed by someone who clearly has some kind of agenda." Robin stood up, reaching out toward Samuel. "Samuel, please. On behalf of the show, I apologize. This isn't what we wanted." Samuel nodded at Robin, his expression softening slightly. "I know you don't, Robin, and I appreciate that, but I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected on national television. I've earned better than that." Michael leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, that smug expression still plastered on his face. So you're really gonna walk off? You're really gonna prove my point about not being able to handle pressure? Samuel turned back to Michael, and for a moment, everyone in the studio held their breath. The only thing I'm proving, Samuel said, is that I respect myself too much to entertain this nonsense. You think this is pressure? Michael, I performed on stages around the world. I've worked with the greatest directors in cinema. I built a legacy that will last long after both of us are gone. This? He gestured around the studio. This isn't pressure. This is just sad. The audience started applauding, slowly at first, then louder, until the entire studio was clapping for Samuel. Michael's face went red. He wasn't smiling anymore. Oh great, Michael said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Everyone applaud the guy who can't finish an interview. That makes sense. George cut in sharply. Michael, enough. That's enough. But Michael wasn't finished. What? I'm the bad guy now because I asked legitimate questions? Because I didn't kiss his feet like everyone else does? Samuel was already walking toward the exit, but he paused at Michael's words. He turned back one more time. You know what your problem is, Michael? Samuel said. You confuse being confrontational with being intelligent. You think that tearing people down makes you look strong, but all it does is show everyone exactly who you are. Robin looked devastated. She called out after Samuel. Samuel, please, can we talk about this? Samuel stopped at the edge of the set, turning to face Robin, but not Michael. Robin, you've always been a class act. George, same to you. But I can't be part of this. I won't be part of this. Michael stood up now, clearly agitated. Fine, leave then. We don't need you anyway. There are plenty of other actors who would love to be here. Then invite them, Samuel replied calmly. I'm sure they'll be thrilled to experience your version of hospitality. The camera crew didn't know where to look. Some kept filming, others lowered their cameras. The producers in the booth were frantically trying to figure out what to do. This was live television, and it was falling apart in real time. George tried one more time to salvage the situation. Samuel, we value you being here. Michael's approach was wrong. Can we take a moment, reset, and start over? Samuel shook his head. I appreciate that, George. I really do. But some things you can't reset. Some things, once they're said, you can't take back. Michael laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, please. You Hollywood types are all the same. You demand respect, but you don't give it. You want everyone to worship you. But the second someone treats you like a normal person, you fall apart. That was it. That was the final straw. Even Robin looked angry now. Michael, you need to stop talking, Robin said, her voice firm. Right now. You need to stop. But Michael was on a roll, his ego apparently unable to let this go. Why should I stop? Because I'm telling the truth? Because I'm not playing the game? This is exactly what's wrong with celebrity culture. They can't handle honesty. Samuel had reached the exit, but Michael's words carried across the studio. Samuel didn't turn around this time. He just kept walking. That's right, walk away, Michael called after him. Show everyone that you can dish it out in your movies. But you can't take it in real life. Robin stepped in front of Michael, actually physically blocked him from continuing. Stop. Just stop, Michael. You're making this worse. The audience had gone completely silent now. The applause had died down, and people were just watching in shock as one of the most awkward television moments in recent memory unfolded before them. George stood up and addressed the camera directly. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. But before they could cut to commercial, Michael had to get one more word in. We don't need to take a break. Let's keep going. Let's talk about what really happened here. Let's talk about how entitled celebrities think they can control every conversation. Robin turned on him, her professionalism finally cracking. Michael, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Michael looked genuinely confused, like he couldn't understand why everyone was upset with him. I'm doing my job. I'm asking questions. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? George shook his head. There's a difference between asking tough questions and being hostile, Michael. What you did was hostile. I wasn't hostile, Michael protested. I was honest. There's a difference. From somewhere off camera, a producer's voice called out, We're going to commercial in 5, 4, 3. But the damage was done. Samuel L. Jackson had walked off the set of Good Morning America. One of the biggest movie stars in the world had been disrespected so thoroughly, so publicly, that he chose to leave rather than continue the interview. As the show cut to commercial, Michael sat back down, still looking defiant. Robin and George exchanged glances, both of them clearly upset and frustrated. Robin leaned over to Michael, her voice low but audible to the nearby microphones. What were you thinking? What was going through your head? Michael shrugged. I was thinking that we should treat celebrities like everyone else. I was thinking that honest questions shouldn't be off limits just because someone's famous. George joined the conversation, his tone sharp. Michael, there's a way to ask challenging questions without being disrespectful. You know that. You've been doing this long enough to know that. So, I'm the villain now? Michael asks, spreading his hands. I'm the bad guy because I didn't fawn all over him? Robin sighed, rubbing her temples. You're missing the point entirely. This wasn't about fawning or not fawning. This was about basic respect. Basic human decency. Michael scoffed. Basic human decency? He's the one who walked off. He's the one who couldn't handle a conversation. The commercial break was almost over. The producers were signaling for everyone to get ready, but the tension on set was thick enough to cut with a knife. George looked directly at Michael. When we come back, you're not speaking. Robin and I will handle the rest of the show. You're done for today. Michael's eyes widened. You're benching me? On my own show? It's not your show, Robin corrected quietly. It's our show, all of ours. And right now, you need to sit there and be quiet. The cameras came back on. Robin and George smiled professionally at the lens, but anyone watching could see the strain behind their eyes. Robin spoke first, her voice warm but measured. Welcome back. As you can see, we've had an unexpected turn of events this morning. Samuel L. Jackson has left the interview, and we want to address that. George nodded. We at Good Morning America pride ourselves on respectful, engaging conversations with our guests. What happened this morning fell short of that standard. And for that, we apologize to Samuel and to our viewers. Michael sat between them, silent, his jaw clenched tight. You could see the anger in his posture, the frustration in his eyes. But true to George's word, he didn't speak. Robin continued. Samuel L. Jackson is not just a talented actor. He's a professional who has given decades to his craft and has earned respect from his peers and audiences worldwide. He deserved better today. The rest of the show continued, but it was awkward. Every segment felt forced. Every smile felt fake. The energy that usually carried Good Morning America through its broadcast was gone, replaced by an uncomfortable tension that viewers at home could feel through their screen. During the cooking segment, the chef seemed nervous, as if afraid he might accidentally set Michael off. During the weather report, the meteorologist kept his updates shorter than usual, getting in and out as quickly as possible. Through it all, Michael sat there, silent but seething. At one point, during a commercial break, he stood up and walked off the set without a word. Robin and George didn't stop him. They just looked at each other, exhausted and frustrated. When Michael returned before they went back on air, he slumped into his chair without making eye contact with anyone. The final segments of the show dragged on, each minute feeling like an hour. Finally, mercifully, they reached the end of the broadcast. Robin delivered the closing remarks, thanking viewers for watching and promising a great show tomorrow. George added his own goodbye, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. And just like that, it was over. The cameras stopped rolling, the lights dimmed slightly, and the studio audience began to file out, whispering among themselves about what they had just witnessed. Michael immediately stood and walked toward his dressing room, ignoring the producers who tried to flag him down. Robin watched him go, shaking her head slowly. What a disaster, she said quietly to George. George nodded. I've never seen anything like that, not in all my years doing this. The crew began breaking down the set, but everyone was moving slowly, still processing what had happened. People whispered in small groups, replaying the moment when Samuel stood up, when Michael kept pushing, when everything fell apart. In his dressing room, Michael paced back and forth, his phone already blowing up with messages, calls, and notifications. But he didn't look at it, he just paced, muttering to himself about unfair treatment and oversensitivity. Meanwhile, Samuel L. Jackson had already left the building. He walked out the front door, got into his waiting car, and drove away without looking back. He didn't release a statement, he didn't tweet about it. He simply left, his dignity intact. His point made. The clip of the confrontation hit social media within minutes. People who had been watching live started sharing their reactions, their shock, their support for Samuel. The hashtag started trending immediately, with thousands of people weighing in on what they had just seen. Some defended Michael, saying he was just doing his job, asking tough questions that needed to be asked. But the vast majority sided with Samuel. They saw what everyone in that studio had seen: disrespect, entitlement, an ego that had gotten completely out of control. Back at the studio, emergency meetings were being called. Producers, executives, network representatives, all scrambling to figure out how to handle the fallout. This wasn't just an awkward interview. This was a public relations nightmare unfolding in real time. Robin sat in her dressing room, replaying the interview in her mind. She thought about all the times she could have stepped in more forcefully, all the moments when she could have shut Michael down before things got so bad. She felt responsible, even though she knew, logically, that Michael's behavior was his own choice. George was in a similar state, sitting at his desk with his head in his hands. He had worked too hard, for too long, to build the reputation of Good Morning America. And in the span of one interview, he had watched that reputation take a serious hit. The thing about live television is that you can't take anything back. Every word, every gesture, every moment of tension is captured and broadcast to millions of people. There are no second takes, no editing, no chance to fix mistakes before they reach the audience. And Michael's mistakes had been broadcast in crystal clear high definition for everyone to see. As the day wore on, more and more people weighed in. Fellow actors expressed support for Samuel. Industry professionals criticized Michael's approach. Media analysts dissected every second of the confrontation, breaking down where it went wrong and why. Some pointed out that Samuel had remained remarkably composed throughout the entire ordeal. Even as Michael became more aggressive, more confrontational, Samuel never raised his voice. He never resorted to insults. He simply stated his boundaries, and when those boundaries were not respected, he left. That, many argued, was the mark of true professionalism. Knowing when to walk away, knowing that some battles aren't worth fighting, especially when the other person has no interest in having a real conversation. Others focused on Michael's behavior, questioning what could have possessed him to treat a guest, any guest, with such blatant disrespect. Was it ego? Was it a misguided attempt to seem tough or edgy? Was there some personal animosity that viewers weren't aware of? Whatever the reason, the result was the same. Samuel L. Jackson had walked off Good Morning America, and the entire television industry was talking about it. In the days that would follow, there would be statements and apologies and damage control. But none of that matters for this story. What matters is what happened in that studio, in those few explosive minutes when a simple interview turned into a confrontation that no one would forget. Samuel L. Jackson had walked off Good Morning America, and the entire television industry was talking about it. In the days that would follow, there would be statements and apologies and damage control. But none of that matters for this story. What matters is what happened in that studio, in those few explosive minutes when a simple interview turned into a confrontation that no one would forget.